Start your week with a triple shot of good vibes. This is the Project Joy podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas. Thanks for joining me. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Project Joy podcast. And now it's time for this week's story of joy. I've talked a lot about my kids lately. Gosh, I think about it like every story of joy I'm talking about my kids, and rightly so. Honestly, we've had I shared before that we had 4 birthdays going on in the last month. We had my son's graduation, and my oldest daughter, and who we celebrated she was one of the birthdays we celebrated. She turned 13 this last month, and I mean, we know that that's a huge milestone going into the teenage years, right? Pray for me. And so but I've got two older than her, so it's not like I haven't been there before with the teenagers. But I've been so inspired by her this week because I've mentioned before on the show, and also on the Breakthrough show, that I homeschool the kids. I've been homeschooling the kids since 2013, and it really has brought us such a huge element of freedom on many different levels. By the way, that's a little synchronicity and symbol and sign of what's to come next week. That is all. And so it really has been an amazing experience for us, and because it gives it on a family level, it has given us the ability to have so much freedom in our schedule, and with spending time together. And as far as the kids go, it really does give them the freedom to learn at their own pace, to learn the things that they are drawn to. I mean, obviously, there are basics that every human being needs to know. And unfortunately, a lot of those aren't even being taught in public school anymore. But that's another show for another time, and not a particularly joyful one. But anyway, there are things that they can choose to learn in addition to those core things that really light them up inside. So um, as far as the learning at your own pace, my daughter's done really well with everything that I've given her. In addition, she really is, and this is something that I found with all the kids across the board, is that they are able to learn and pick up so much just by everyday experiences. And that has been a huge case with her. And like I said, with some of the other kids, where I've had no clue that they've known something, and then when I realize they do, I'm kind of surprised by it. But at any rate, anything that I throw at my daughter she's totally understood it. And this is my oldest daughter, my third oldest child, but my oldest daughter. And we had a conversation about what we're going to be doing this year, and she was like, I think I'm ready to start my high school classes. I want to graduate early. She has lots of big goals. She wants to open a vegan cafe, a vegan bakery, and she's amazing. Anybody that's on my personal page has probably seen some of the amazing things that she made. Blows me away. Things that I wouldn't have been able to do at that age. Maybe I could if I had the desire, put my mind to it. But she definitely does amazing. So I was thinking to myself, gosh, is 13 going to be too much for her? But you hear these stories every now and then, especially with homeschoolers, where you hear about kids starting school early, or starting college early, or starting high school early, or whatever. And um and so I said, all right, well, let's give it a go. And we homeschool all year round here. So the reason we do that is so we can spend less time on a daily basis, and also be able to break when we want to, and extended break sometimes. So it depends on, if we want to go on a nice vacation, if, like I said, that freedom piece. But anyway, she started last week, and she made it through her first week, and it was amazing. And the things that she didn't pick up right away or do really well on, she kept going until she got it, and until she figured it out, until she got that good score on her on her little quizzes and things like that. And so I was just so proud of her. And it was such an inspiring, joyful moment for me as a mom, because it was also such a reminder of to not put ourselves in a box, and not say you can't do this because of your age, or you can't do this because of where you live, or you can't do this because of whatever excuse you want to put in there. That you can, if you want to, if you're driven and determined enough, and you're getting joy from it, why not put yourself out there and just do it anyway. It was that great, joyful reminder to me to just do it regardless of whatever's going on. So that's my story of joy for you today. We're going to be back in just a minute with our Joy in Stories episode with my guest Trista Polo. We'll be back in just a minute. What's up, everyone? It's Jessica here, your host of the Project Joy podcast and, of course, the Breakthrough Show. I want to take a moment and thank all of our supporters here at the show. With your financial support, we are able to expand the show and reach more people with the hopes of inspiring our audience members to change their lives for the better and know they are supported during times of breakthrough. We welcome our one-time contributions to our show by sending a PayPal to business@thebreakthroughshow.com, or you can join us at patreon.com/thebreakthroughshow, where you'll be rewarded for your regular contribution with things like our exclusive community, Soul Connection Collective, merchandise discounts, fun shout-outs on the show, and more. On behalf of everyone here at the Breakthrough Show and its network, we thank you for your generous support. Now, back to the podcast. Welcome back to the Project Joy podcast. I'm really excited to have a new friend on today. You guys know I just invite friends on this podcast for my last episode of the month, which is always Joy in Stories, and getting to hear stories about joy and what joy means to other people on this particular part of the series. And this person that I have on today is going to be a guest on the Breakthrough Show coming up, but we hit it off right away. And I thought, well, everything she does is so joyful, so she's got to have something to share about with joy. So Trista Polo is a coach and speaker at iwokeupawesome.com. Is there not some joy there? And she's a podcaster for Trista's Plate Story podcast. That's PL8 Story podcast, and interviews people about stories behind their vanity plates. Welcome, Trista.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for asking me to come on.
Absolutely. I always love to, people on this podcast hear me spout on about things that bring me joy, but, and stories in my life, but I always like to have that perspective from other people, what brings other people joy. And I think it's something that can bring us all together, because we'll listen to it and then go, oh, I didn't think about that, but that brings me joy too. And it kind of connects us a little bit.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. So I want to know what joy looks like in your life.
Boy, I was thinking about this question. I think a lot about gratitude. What am I grateful for? I do a lot with gratitude. But joy, is that gratitude? Is it something else? And so I really spent some time on it. And what I realized is what really brings me joy is that spark connection with another person. Do you know what I mean? Like where you meet them and you feel like you've known them forever.
Yeah.
It's like your energies match up. It's like instead of a conversation, it's almost this exchange of good magical juices. And there's just this spark between you. And it doesn't have to be love or sex or anything, but just like this instant connection.
Yeah.
Where your whole entire conversation is lit with energy, like coming from somewhere between you, being created by the two of you. I definitely felt that with you, actually.
Yeah.
When
we had to change our emoji on Facebook.
We did. Yes, we did. Yeah. And there was another podcast I was on recently called Her Sweet Spot. And she was just like this. And I fed off of that. And she told me later that she actually kind of got that inspiring feeling from me first. So it was like this connection back and forth.
Yeah.
Boy, I love that. That brings me so much joy. And it's not just with people, it's with my animals or other people's animals. Let's face it, any animals really for me. I'm a very big animal person. In fact, there are some people that I have better relationships with their dog than I do with them. But this morning, our dog sleeps with us. She's an Australian cattle dog. And this morning we cuddled. She just kind of came over and she had her head just kind of right on my chest here. And then my hand was sort of under her paw. You know, that time between when you wake up and when you get up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And boy, that was a really nice, joyful moment too. So that intimacy as well with somebody like my husband or my niece when I hold her. So I think it's really just all for me about connection, that really spiritual connection. I looked it up on the internet. I thought, well, does this have a name? And everything that came up was the word soulmate. And I always think of soulmate as the person that you're meant to be with, that you live happily ever after, you know? But it's really more than that. And so I think soulmate connection is a good term for it.
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, we've had Alan Knight on the Breakthrough Show before, and he has a group called the Soulmate Revolution. And when he first said soulmate to me, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, kismet lovers, you know, like that's how I always think of it. You know, in fact, when the term twin flame came out, like it felt very soulmate-ish to me in that way. And so that's what I've always thought of. But I've always had, I guess, in the back of my mind that like we could be soulmates with a lot of people. To me, it's like, I don't know, just the people that you are, the souls that you are intended to go through this life with, or at some point in your life. Doesn't mean the whole life, doesn't mean like the person from birth till death, but you know, as you go along the way, you meet these souls that you connect with immediately. And it almost feels like, gosh, I feel like we've done this before. Like we've known each other longer than we have.
Yes.
So what's the difference for you though, of being like, because for me, I find so much joy in the relationships, but when I find out I have a synchronicity with somebody, so when going, like we'll meet somebody. So for example, on the Breakthrough Show, I had a panelist on one day and I had a guest on one day, and it turned out that they went to the same school and they had no idea. Like that, wow. I'm like, oh, this is fun. And that makes me really excited. But what's the difference between like something like that, that's a synchronicity, and the real connection? Is it just the energy for you?
I really am very energetically driven. So I think for me, it is the energy. If we have a synchronicity, but I don't feel that spark between us, it doesn't, I mean, it's still interesting. It's fun. It's fascinating. Yeah. The joy, I think, for me does really come from the energetic connection.
Yeah, I love that. So do you think that we can create that we can be intentional about that? Or is it just like that magic that happens?
I think both. I actually have some very, very good connected friends that I work really closely with, that when I first met them, there wasn't that spark, but we created it through what we created together and our communication together. So yeah, I absolutely think you can create it intentionally.
I love that, because even my husband and I sometimes will watch that. Have you ever watched the show Married at First Sight?
No, I watched one about how you had to marry the person. It was Blind Date or something. It's sort of a similar thing, but
so one of the things, like, I think there's a lot of expectation from many of the people that are on the show that, I mean, yes, sometimes there is that initial spark, there's that initial attraction, there's that initial, like, something magical that happens with your personality. But what the counselors constantly say on that show is sometimes you have to work up to that. You don't know this person. Sometimes it's working together. It's like when you go on your honeymoon, which is hilarious to me that their honeymoon's like the day that they meet. They go on their honeymoon, right? And they're going zip lining or they're going boating, and they have to actually do something together. Sometimes it's that working together and creating something together that connection can grow, I guess, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any ways in particular that you can think of where or any times in particular where you felt that connection and thought, gosh, this is fantastic, but then it doesn't pan out. It fizzles, or is there any moments like that? And does it still bring you joy thinking about it?
I think it doesn't always have to turn into something lifelong. I think it could be a spark and a wonderful creation that lasts 20 minutes. That's kind of where I was struggling a little bit when I was uncovering this for myself is, well, if it's a soulmate, isn't that somebody you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life? I think if you can raise your vibration, which is something I'm always working on. I'm always working on raising my own personal vibration to have a happier day, more productive, more success, more peace. As I've raised my vibrational connection of my energy, I have more of that kismet, synchronicity, energy exchange, fabulousness than I used to. It happens more often. And so it makes me realize that it doesn't have to be with somebody that I'm going to be friends with forever and we're going to be, bridesmaids and each other's weddings and sleep over and go on vacation together. I don't think it has to be that.
Yeah.
I think it can be just this wonderful moment, and then we can choose if it works for us to create something bigger, but I don't think it needs to be.
I love that so much, because that's been I've said it so many times to people, that's been such a huge part of my journey here, because I'm such a nostalgic person. I'm someone that really, I grab onto something and then it's like, okay, good. Now we're going to be like penguins and we're together forever, kind of thing. And but as I've gotten older, that's been very difficult for me, because obviously in the realization that we're not always the same people as we were. And then when you have to let things go I always struggle with that. I have that moment of it's over, really, and it's hard for me. And so I've really been trying to grasp on to the joy in that, finding the joy, even if it doesn't last forever, even if it's only meant to be, like you said, 20 minutes.
Joy in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think when I think back to that, I'm thinking about the podcast I was on. I may never speak to her again, right? We don't live near each other. We don't work together. Ships passing in the night. Yeah. But I have the even the physical memory of what it felt like to connect. And I'm going to have that forever. And I get to have that as a gift. That's a leftover of our interaction. Right. I'm happy to say that you and I have already connected more than that one time. And so it looks like we can create something more and we are doing that. But I don't want to feel obligated. I think that'll take the joy out of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think if you really enjoy the connection with someone, and like you said, where you've either, it can happen magically or you can be intentional and create it. If you enjoy something and you want it to continue, then you do have to be intentional about it, because it's really easy to just, experience something once and go, well, that was fun, next, kind of thing. But for me, I'm Trista's awesome. And she was so good on the breakthrough. I'm going to have her come on Project Joy, or I'm going to just message her and see what she's up to today, or something like that, because you have to, if you liked it, then why not, and if you didn't, then it's cool to have that mutual, well, you were really awesome for a few minutes.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's really about feeling the obligation. If I feel inspired to reach out, I'll feel free to. Right. But if I get busy and I don't reach out, I don't want to feel guilty that I lost something, like trying to grab hold of it before it slips through my fingers.
Right.
So I think I just want to be as intentional about being in the moment of appreciating what it is and not feeling guilty about what it could be and isn't. Right. Because I think that would kind of dissipate the joy and remove that really wonderful gift that it gave me.
Absolutely. Trista, thank you so much for sharing your joy with us today.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it. See what we did
Yes.
there, people.
We did there.
All right, guys, we'll be back in just a minute for more of the Project Podcast.
Did you know that the Breakthrough Show not only has its show every Friday, but that our Facebook page is home to other shows just like this Project Joy podcast that we like to call Breakthrough Extras? You can tune in to our next Breakthrough Extra by joining Shiraz for Rewriting Reality at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern today, Monday, as in this afternoon, and every last Monday of the month. During this live show, you'll be able to call into the provided phone number, click the link to video chat, or use the comments section to review your beliefs, revise your stories, and rewrite your reality. You'll be able to watch him help you and others go to your core beliefs and destroy them like magic. Find out more information at thebreakthroughshow.com or tune in live today at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and every last Monday at facebook.com/breakthroughshow or click the link in the show notes. And now back to the podcast. Welcome back to the Project Joy podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas. I really hope you enjoyed our special guest today, Trista Polo. Thanks so much to Trista for being a part of the show today and for sharing her joy. I had so many, we're on the Breakthrough Show page here. So I just want to share that I had so many breakthrough thoughts and moments with that conversation because like I said, relationships and finding the joy in them, regardless if they are lifelong, long-lasting, whatever, like appreciating the relationships for what they are, and the time that you spend with them has been such a huge part of my journey on this planet. And so I just want to give a big thank you, shout out to Trista for being a part of the show today because it was amazing and it was so much fun. Up next week on the Project Joy podcast, we are going to be talking about joy in freedom. Now, the amazing part about this conversation is that oftentimes we contribute to our own lack of freedom. There's so many ways that we do that. We're going to touch a little bit on that, but I believe that if we lean into the joy of freedom and the idea of freedom and really lean into those joyful, free moments, that we'll want to experience more of it. That's the part of joy that I really want to impress upon people is that when you really lean into that joy, you want to naturally experience more of it. And what's the it that we're talking about? You'll have to tune in to find out. So be sure to join us next week for another episode of the Project Joy podcast. So until next week, guys, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, comment, share where available. We really appreciate that you've taken the time to watch or listen today. And until next week, make joy a priority in your life today and every day. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Project Joy podcast with your host, Jessica Dugas. We'll see you again next Monday and every Monday for another episode to start your week off right.